Satisfaction they couldn't get any other way.
More shootings rock the news as we see shootings come out of Indianapolis and San Antonio. Plus, the video from a shooting in Chicago involving a police officer comes out before we get the verdict out of the Derek Chauvin trial. Aren't you excited for all this, you guys? In other news, James O'Keefe's Twitter is suspended permanently after he exposed CNN for what they really are. Nancy Pelosi says the court-packing bill will not get a vote under no circumstances. So we'll talk just a bit about that. And Andrew Yang gets himself back in the news after a video comes out that implicates him. It's going to be all this and more. Plus, reading the live chat and thanking everybody who chatted in the live chat for the day. Hey, do you trust the plan yet? I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Well, good Friday morning, everybody. My name is Jay Edgar. Welcome to Contemporary, and if you are lurking today, make sure you get at least one message into the live chat today. So I remember very kindly to thank you. I've got the names of everybody, even the detractors who came out and chatted in the live chat throughout the week here, just to make sure I give that extra special thank you. And we did have some detractors yesterday. We had some people that were not happy that I came out and said that the judge was supposed to be impartial in the Chauvin trial. I have some people that were not happy for that, which, kind of tells you where the media has put people, of the fact that we're now guilty until we're proven innocent. But hey, we'll talk a bit about that as we come along and talk about the Chauvin trial, because that's heading to final arguments coming up on Monday. But before we get started, I want to remind everybody, starting in just a few hours, actually, midnight to midnight Central Time, which it's 8 a.m. Central Time right now. So I guess it's more than a few hours, but it's coming up in a hurry. Midnight to midnight, starting tonight at midnight, or tomorrow if you're on the East Coast at 1 a.m. But starting tonight, we are going 24 hours for suicide prevention. 24 of them. I'm a little bit nervous because I haven't gone for 24 hours since I was in the early days of college. I'm not going to lie. So I'm a little bit nervous as to how this is going to turn out, but it looks like I've got Elaine on board to come back and help out a lot. We've got a bunch of great guests, a bunch of great interviews. I am so pumped for the fact that both this is over and the fact that we're going to be bringing this up. And I still have a little bit of last minute prep to do, but I'm pretty much going to spend the whole day sleeping. So hopefully this is all going to turn out well, and we're going to see a lot of really good stuff come back out of this. I'm so blessed for the fact that this is coming. But Everybody from Freedom Scoop is going to be participating. We've got a lot of people in, ready to go. Looks like I've got some new audience just looking around from various other promotion coming out of this. Steven's been promoting this, and I've had a few of his friends come in and start following. The R-Rated Conservative has been promoting this, and I've had a few of his friends come back out and start following. I've already recorded with Brian Nichols, so hopefully some of his audience will come back through. Fritz is going to be live. He's not going to be pre-recorded now. We determined that last night, so it's going to be a day. It is going to be an absolute day. I am so excited for all of this, but join me starting at midnight, my time, and we're going to start playing some Stardew Valley, and we're going to do that through the wee hours of the morning. And then the interviews kick off, and what a packed schedule it is. I still have people asking about when they're going to be coming on, because with everybody that wanted to be involved with this, some people slipped through the cracks, but I will find a way to get everybody in here. Absolutely will. But other than that, come on over there and check us out over there, and go over there and bookmark the Freedom Scoop Media Group as well. So, looking forward to all that. After we're done selling all the wares here, let's get into some of the finance for the day. Starting with the Dow. The Dow is sitting at 34,035.99 points. That is up throughout the day, and a new record once again. 34,000 as the new record. It looks like we had a blowout on consumer spending, so everyone wants to go out and buy the industrials and the stuff where people go to spend stuff. Five Below, Walmart, Target, shit like that. So you're going to see your industrials come back up off of this. I'm not surprised at all with any of this, but I know that a friend of the show, Maddie Walker, came out and also pointed out the fact that this means that people are spending money on stupid crap and not paying their bills with the stimulus and other stuff that was supposed to come out and do that. So I can't judge anybody. We'll see what happens off of this. And, well, we'll look into that as it goes. Let's have a look at the Bitcoin. Bitcoin came on a slide, sitting now at $60,727 US dollars and 90 US cents. So some confidence is going back into the US dollar, and people are selling back out of the Bitcoin, looks like. But we're sitting back in another dip. Will you buy it? Will you hold out off it? Or will you wait just a little bit more? Well, we'll see what you guys have to do. Let's look at the gas. Gas looks to be holding, well, not holding steady anymore. We've got a few stations that are still holding on to 253, but it looks like we're starting to come back out and see the 256s and 257s come back up, possibly coming with the consumer price index coming back out as well. The gas guys look at this and say, well, we can make some money off this. Hey, let's crank this up just a little bit here. And people are willing to spend the money because they're starting to go back to work, so we'll see what happens when this goes. All right, let's get into CNBC to start off the day. Dow jumps 300 points to top 34,000 for the first time amid blowout economic data from Yoon Lee and Thomas Frank. U.S. stocks climbed to record levels on Thursday after key companies reported strong earnings and fresh economic data pointed to a rebound in consumer spending and the jobs market. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 305.10 points, or 0.9%, to a record close of 34,035.99, marking the first time the blue chip benchmark has crossed the 34,000 milestone. With inflated dollars, of course, the S&P 500 gained 1.1% to 4170.42, also reaching a record high. The Nasdaq Composite advanced 1.3% to 14,038.76. Technology shares rebounded as bond yields fell. The so-called FANG stocks, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Alphabet. Oh, that's what that stands for. You read the stuff every day and you still learn something new all the time. All climbed more than 1%. The 10-year Treasury yield dropped 8 basis points below 1.56%. They're still printing money. I'm wary of that one. Because the record and the rate that they're printing money back out, I would expect to see that still at least at 1.7. Be wary of that number because that might be manipulated. Earlier in the year, higher rates caused investors to dump growth-oriented stocks. Retail sales surged 9.8% in March as additional stimulus sent customer spending soaring. That's a hard thing to say when you've got a lisp. The Commerce Department reported Thursday that number topped the Dow Jones estimate of a 6.1% gain. A separate report on Thursday showed that the first-time filings for unemployment insurance dropped to the lowest level since March of 2020. The Labor Department reported 576,000 new jobless claims for the week ended April 10th. Economists polled by Dow Jones expected a total of 710,000. Although 34,000 by itself is just another number, this is a monumental feat when you think back to where we were this time last year, said Ryan Dietrich, chief market strategist at LPL Financial. The speed and resiliency of this economic recovery is unlike anything we've ever seen, and it helps to justify stocks at all-time highs. Shares of United Health, a Dow member, gained 3.8% after the results topped the street's forecast, and the health insurer raised guidance for 2021. Pepsi shares added 0.1% after the consumer snack and drink maker said sales last quarter rose nearly 7%, topping estimates. The market has been grinding higher to reach new records in recent sessions amid the economic reopening and trillions of dollars in stimulus. The S&P 500 has gained 11% in 2021, with energy and financials up most year to date. I am incredibly bullish on the markets, and you are right to be worried about our deficits, Larry Fink, BlackRock CEO, said in an interview on Squawk Box. If we don't have economic growth that is sustainable over the next 10 years, our deficits are going to matter, and they are going to elevate interest rates. I believe because of monetary stimulus, fiscal stimulus, cash on the sidelines, earnings, markets are okay. Markets are going to continue to be stronger. Shares of Citigroup erased earlier gains and fell 0.5%. The bank posted results that beat analysts' estimates for the first quarter profit, with strong investment banking revenue and bigger than expected release of loan loss reserves. Bank of America shares rose as earnings last quarter blew past the street on booming trading and investment banking results, as well as the release of loan loss reserves. The shares dipped 2.9%, however. So we got a bunch of stuff that's moving and shaking over here on the markets. Looks like everything's pointing back up because everyone's looking at, well, everyone's going out and spending. Everyone's going back to work. Go out and buy, and go buy your stocks that involve people going out and buying. So a lot of stuff to go along with that here. Let's grab one here from Yahoo Finance. Stock market news, live update. Stock futures drift after S&P 500. Dow log record highs from Emily McCormick. Stock futures traded sideways Friday morning after another record-setting day on Wall Street, with a batch of stronger than expected economic data and corporate earnings results helping fuel a risk rally. Contracts on the S&P 500 ticked above the flat line after the index reached a record high a day earlier. Dow futures edged higher after the Dow jumped to a record intraday and closing level of more than 34,000. Contracts on the Nasdaq edged slightly lower as the technology stocks rather steadied. The Dow's push through 34,000 is a signal that investor appetite for future growth prospects is spilling over into more value-oriented names. Peter Assel, head of portfolio management for Commonwealth Financial Network, said in an email. The demand for industrials and more cyclically oriented areas should continue as the vaccines take hold and earnings potentially come in higher than originally expected. Treasury yields ticked up Friday morning after retreating on Thursday, even amid a batch of estimates topping economic data. Retail sales rose in March by the most since May 2020, fueled by a combination of stimulus spending and broadening business reopenings, and a new weekly unemployment claim fell to a fresh pandemic-era low. First quarter corporate earnings have largely topped already lofty estimates, with the big banks that reported this week's posting rising sales and profits to coincide with the strengthening economic backdrop. To many strategists, the stronger than anticipated quarterly reports this week are likely just the start of a slew of strong results in the coming weeks. Well, maybe, because I already know we're talking about Michigan shutting back down, we're talking about New York shutting back down, and people are trying to get Florida to go shut themselves back down, even though DeSantis is going to look at that and do one of these. So we're seeing cases rising left and right. Even California might get on board with this, although Newsom, looking at the recall, might not be that dumb. So we'll see what's happening with that, but this could go either way at this point. People coming out seeing the sun for the first time, saying, fuck this, I don't want to be locked in my house anymore. Let's go buy shit, because that's the American dream. Coupled, and of course this is going to come back down to people looking back and begging the government to pay their bills in a few months. Mark my words on that. Coupled with the fact that the housing market may pop as people start to look at the fact that they haven't paid their mortgage or rent, in some cases, in over a year. That money's going to come due at some point here. I see a bubble. I don't know if this is a bubble or not, but I see a bubble sitting right here. And I don't know which way to take it. So we'll watch this as it moves along. We'll see what the futures do. We'll see what the stocks do. And we will continue to monitor finance. All right. I've got one from CNBC. I got another one here. I just want to indulge. I don't usually do a third finance one, but the consumer prices. I wanted to take a little bit of time and look at that. But definitely something we need to watch as well. So from CNBC, before we get into the big news of the day, consumer prices rise more than expected, pushed by a 9.1% jump in gasoline. From Jeff Cox. Consumer prices shot higher in March, given a boost by a strong economic recovery and year-over-year comparisons to a time when the COVID-19 pandemic was about to throttle the U.S. economy, the Labor Department reported on Tuesday. The Consumer Price Index rose 0.6% from the previous month, but 2.6% from the same period a year ago. The year-over-year gain is the highest since August 2018 and was well above the 1.7% recorded in February. The index was projected to rise 0.5% on a monthly basis and 2.5% from March 2020, according to Dow Jones estimates. The report is the clearest indication so far that the signs of mounting inflation evident in business surveys and producer prices are feeding through to a stronger consumer price, wrote Michael Pierce, senior U.S. economist at Capital Economics. For all the focus on supply disruptions pushing good prices higher, the strongest upward pressure on prices is coming from the services sector. Gasoline prices were the biggest contributor to the monthly gain, surging 9.1% in March and responsible for about half the overall CPI increase. Gasoline is up 22.5% from a year ago, part of a 13.2% increase in energy prices, and that is something you need to pay attention to. And something else you need to see that goes along with this. Now, Britt from the Freckles and Britt Show has pointed out numerous times, and this is actually true, gas prices are rising. They're up astronomically, especially when we consider what we were seeing in May and the first part of June last year. And I remember because I drove across the country in the first part of June because the gas prices were so low. With 8 thirsty cylinders sitting in front of me and gas at between 97 cents and $1.19, I got in the truck and went down to Washington, D.C. and picked up a certain piano man and his guitar, and we got on 95 and we headed right down to Orlando. 8 thirsty pistons slapping the whole fucking way. Because you could afford to do that. And with that, whenever you see fuel prices go up, even if they've gone down recently, even if they're still lower than they were 4 years ago, you're going to see the prices of goods go up with them. So now you're seeing the prices, and Britt points out too, I mean, the gas prices are up and the grocery prices are up. So this consumer spending isn't all fucking farts and rainbows. Like the first CNBC article tried to make it seem like people are just going out and spending money. Yes, they are going out and spending money, but everything is more expensive. Hell, Seawall went out and built a computer on Part Picker. You can see the link up here in my bookmarks. Seawall built me a computer in there for just a touch over $600 for everything, except for the graphics card, which he is going to be donating to the cause. We're actually waiting to see if that's going to come up and pop up here, but he built a computer for me for just a touch under $600. I think it was like $598 when it went up to. Last I looked, and I haven't opened it up for a couple weeks because of the planning for the charity stream that's coming up, it was up to $710 in just a couple of months, just a month rather. It wasn't even a couple of months. In just a month, the thing jumped $100. Your gas prices are getting higher, and they're building that cost. Oh, not your gas prices, but your diesel prices are getting higher. And your suppliers are building that cost into the product. So that's another part of the reason your consumer spending is going up, because your ramen noodles, your rice-a-roni, your beef, and everything else that goes along your grocery bill, as well as your clothes, your electronic pieces, and everything else that you touch is also going up. Your prices, your consumer prices are going up, but the spending is going to go with it. So, a lot of stuff to look at here, and, like I said, the CNBC article, consumer spending is going up. The investors want to invest. Your prices are going up too. It's not all fats and rainbows, the way that CNBC wants you to believe that it is, but definitely some more stuff to watch. All right, let's get into the big news of the day. And I actually have to tell you, Silent Caster, that you were wrong in the chat, but only slightly. Because it's not going to be the Indianapolis shooting that's coming up first. First, we're going to do the San Antonio one. And then we'll do the Indianapolis one. From KSAT.com to start out for the morning. Active shooter shot, killed at San Antonio International Airport by officer, SAPD chief says. This is from Julie Moreno. A man who opened fire from a highway ramp and then at the San Antonio airport was shot and killed by a park police officer at the airport on Thursday. San Antonio Police Chief William McManus said the man drove onto the airport terminal going the wrong way at 2:30 p.m. A park police officer who was working overtime at the airport confronted the man, who immediately got out of his car and opened fire at the officer and the building, McManus said. The officer returned fire and incapacitated the shooter. He was killed, though, so not just incapacitated, which means that we're never going to get to hear his side of the story. That's going to be important, and I'm going to talk about that after the Indianapolis shooting story as well. The shooter had a lot of ammunition and was shooting indiscriminately, McManus said. We're lucky today not to have a lot of people injured or killed during this event. McManus said police were familiar with this man because of the previous interactions and said the man had mental issues. The suspect was taken into the hospital, where he was pronounced dead. An FBI spokesperson on the scene said the incident would be handled by police as a local investigation, and there was no federal connection at this point. 2 people were taken to the hospital for injuries suffered during the incident at the airport. 1 person may have been hit by shrapnel during the shooting, while a second person was injured while running away from the area during gunfire, McManus said. Earlier on Thursday, a shooter opened fire from flyover overpass at Highway 281 and Loop 1604. Nobody was injured in that incident. McManus said they were confident that shooter was the same person in both cases. Kind of like they're confident that there was only one shooter in Las Vegas. An airport spokesperson said the FAA put a hold on arrivals and departures immediately following the shooting at the airport, but said that the hold has been lifted. Shortly after the shootings, all operations were returned to normal before 6 p.m. So, thankfully on this one, it doesn't look like anybody was really hurt. Maybe the officer was hurt for a little bit, but another bystander hit by shrapnel from a bullet exploding when it hit concrete or concrete itself. But for the most part, the only person involved in this one is dead, is the shooter. So, that's the good one, but now we've got to go the other direction. From WISHTV.com, Channel 8 out of Indianapolis. Gunman fatally shoots 8, then self at FedEx facility near Indianapolis Airport. This is from Greg Montgomery and WISH staff reports. A gunman fatally shot 8 people late Thursday night at a FedEx facility near Indianapolis International Airport before he killed himself, police said early Friday. The gunman is believed to have fatally shot himself, said Officer Janae Cook, Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department spokeswoman. IMPD did not reveal if the gunman was a FedEx worker or a possible motive. The identity of the shooter has not been released. That's weird. He might not have been white. A spokesperson with the Federal Bureau of Investigation confirms the FBI will be assisting IMPD with the investigation. Cook said multiple people were injured and many drove themselves to area hospitals for treatment. IMPD did not have any idea how many people total were injured, asking for people to contact the police department if they were injured in the shooting. IMPD said 5 people with injuries consistent with gunshot wounds were transported to hospitals. 2 more people were treated at the scene and released. Indianapolis police plan to have another news conference on Friday morning. IMPD was sent reports of shots fired and an active shooter shortly before 11:10 p.m. Thursday at 8951 Mirabelle Road. That's the address of the FedEx facility in a commercial area with a few hotels and multiple warehouses just south of the I-70 interchange at Ameriplex Parkway. Jeremiah Miller had finished a shift at FedEx facility and was preparing to work a second consecutive shift when he and a coworker, Timothy Boylett, heard gunfire up to 10 shots. This made me stand up and actually look out the entrance door. I saw a man with a submachine gun of some sort, an automatic rifle, and he was firing into the open. Yeah, I bet you he didn't have a submachine gun or an automatic rifle. I immediately ducked down and I got scared, and my friend's mother, she came in, told us to get inside the car. Police have not revealed what type of gun was used. About an hour after the shooting, Miller and Boylett were telling other workers not to come to work for the next shift. Boylett said, "I didn't exactly see a person get shot, but after hearing the shooting, I did see a body on the floor behind a vehicle. Luckily, I was far enough away where he, the shooter, didn't notice me or see me, so thank God for that." I-70 reopened shortly before 1 a.m. Friday after being closed for more than 90 minutes between I-465 and Ronald Reagan Parkway. However, Indiana State Police said Ameriplex Parkway was closed south of I-70. The ramp for the interstate to Ameriplex Parkway was closed. Cook said anyone concerned about family members should go to the Holiday Inn, Indianapolis Airport at 8555 Stansted Road, which is southeast of the FedEx facility. Hundreds of people were waiting in and around the Holiday Inn for more information. A line had formed to a ballroom inside the hotel where FedEx staffers were meeting with people to help them find workers. Chaplains gathered by IMPD were also comforting those waiting for news at the hotel. The American Red Cross is providing snacks and drinks. Cook said FedEx workers should contact their supervisors or human resources about reporting to work on Friday. She said the facility will be closed for some time. Well, yes, they have to go back and clean up all the blood and the investigation to go along with this to try and figure out what's going on with this. If we even ever figure out what happened with this and what's going on with it. I am suspicious as hell at this point, looking at this. I'm starting to get very suspicious as to how much of this is actually going on and is grassroots and is coming, and how much of this is staged. Because, and I've mentioned this before, every third day since Congress got a big fucking dick about doing gun control, we've seen another mass shooting, so-called, in various places that you wouldn't go back and expect. And it's the same thing with doing police reform too, because all of a sudden now we're starting to see all these issues and all these situations of either a police-involved shooting, which I'm even getting suspicious of that at this point, or they're digging up evidence off of an old police-involved shooting, which we'll talk about in just a minute at this point. But the biggest red flag for me on these, I mean, with the Boulder one, the guy was at least taken into custody, but you haven't heard a word about that, or a motive, or anything else off of that after he was taken into custody. And they have questioned him enough that they could probably put him in front of the grand jury at this point. Hey, remember what happened in Orange, California? Bet you don't. Remember what happened in Bryan, Texas? Bet you don't. I believe the Bryan, Texas guy actually was deceased at the scene as well. But the Orange, California guy was taken into custody. You remember Atlanta? Bet you don't. Think about that for a second. And now we have 2 in the same day where shooter deceased. Guess what? We're never going to be able to hear a testimony from these people or a motive. And I don't want to get tinfoily. That's my friend Stephen Ignoramus's job. He's the one that gets tinfoily all the time. But I look at this. Dead men can give no testimony. Were these people hired to come out and do this? To advance an agenda? Were their families promised that they were going to be taken care of forever to advance an agenda? They are trying to hit gun control in the worst possible way, coming up out of the federal top down. H.R. 8 is still out there, you guys. It's still waiting to go through the Senate. And I bet you somebody, at least one person, has looked at Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin and said, you know what? All the blood for all these shootings, this is all on your hands because you wouldn't eliminate the filibuster. Guess what? This is your fault. I'm starting to get really, really suspicious out of all this, especially considering the fact that we didn't hear about this all the time during the Trump administration or even during Obama. We didn't hear about this. Even with Obama having a massive gun control agenda, we didn't hear about it every third day like we are right now. Yes, we heard a lot of news coverage when there was one, and the same thing under Trump. When there was one, we heard about it for days, and we discussed it for days. How long did we sit and discuss Parkland? I could go back to the beginning of my channel and tell you about how long we discussed Parkland, because that was the first 2 months of this YouTube channel, the one you're watching on right now. That was the first 2 months of that, was Parkland. So we did talk about it. We just talked about the same incident over and over and over for weeks. Where now these are just happening left and right, and the news media is covering them left and right. I have questions right now, you guys. I have a lot of questions right now. And if you are not stocking up on armaments and ammo, you're out of your mind. Because something's coming. The frequency of these, and I said, that's the other thing that came out of this, because I tweeted out last night. At what point do we start to ask whether or not all this shit is staged? And I didn't even know about the Indianapolis shooting or the San Antonio shooting at the time. I was actually talking about the Adam Toledo thing, which we'll talk about in just a minute. That's what I was talking about with that. Because I didn't realize that that was something that happened previously that they're just now releasing evidence for. I thought that was another cop-involved shooting that had just happened a day ago. Right as we're getting ready to release the results, the jury's about to go to deliberation for the Chauvin trial, which we'll talk about that a little bit later too. I am so suspicious right now of everything. You don't go from I will cite the fact that we were all locked in our homes forever, but you don't just go from almost no shootings whatsoever for a good 2 years to every fucking third day after a presidential inauguration. That's the other thing to keep in mind. All of this started on January 21st. I'm not saying it's planned. I'm just saying it's really suspicious at this point. I'm just looking at the statistics at this point. All right, so that's what we see coming back up out of Indianapolis. And of course, the hearts of those at the Freedom Scoop Media Group and all the staff at Contemporary. It's me. I'm all the staff at Contemporary. Go out to the families of those who lost loved ones in Indianapolis. I've actually got to check to make sure that my wonderful co-host didn't have anybody involved in that particular facility, because that is her neck of the woods. I don't know specific geography of where she is in Indianapolis. I just know that she's in somewhere in the greater Indianapolis metro. So, that is what's coming from that. All right. Let's talk about Adam Toledo. From not NBC CBS, what the hell am I thinking? NBC 5 Chicago. That's the Olympic rings. That's not the CBS logo. You can tell I'm getting nervous about this big, long charity stream. Because I trip over my words anyway, but... From NBC 5 out of Chicago. Attorney Adam Toledo did not have gun in his hand when he was shot by Chicago police. From V. Win. The attorney for Adam Toledo's family said the 13-year-old did not have a gun in his hand when he was shot and killed by a Chicago police officer. The family was not present for a press conference late Thursday afternoon in LaGrange Park. The attorney said the family is going through a lot of pain after seeing the body cam video of the shooting, which was released to the public by the Civilian Office of Police Accountability on Thursday. It was especially moving, saddening, distressful to see a 13-year-old boy shot at the hands of an officer, she said. For those of you with children, you can relate to some of the pain that the Toledos are feeling today. The body camera footage that shows the shooting begins within about a minute and 45 seconds of the officer driving to the scene in the Little Village neighborhood before exiting his vehicle and running down the alley. Police, stop! Stop right fucking now, the officer can be heard yelling as Adam appears to pause near a fence bordering a parking lot at the end of the alley. Toledo is then seen turning towards the officer with his hands up. The officer can be heard yelling, "Hey, show me your fucking hands! Drop it! Drop it!" Firing one shot as Adam turns and puts his hands up just under 20 seconds after the officer exited his vehicle. As Adam turns and raises his hands, he's illuminated by a flashlight, and the body camera footage appears to show that both of the boys' hands are empty. Those videos speak for themselves, she said. Adam, during his last second of life, did not have a gun in his hand. A surveillance video from across the parking lot, though recorded from a distance, appears to show Adam make a tossing motion with his right hand behind the fence before turning to face the approaching officer. It was at that time that the officer fired. That is why I want to be especially clear right now that the child comply at the officer's request, dropped the gun, turned around, the officer saw his hands were up and pulled the trigger, he said. The Cook County Assistant State's Attorney said Toledo had a gun in his right hand when he was shot by police during a bond hearing for the 21-year-old Reuben Roman over the weekend. A spokesperson for the SAO walked those comments back on Thursday. An attorney who works in his office failed to inform himself before speaking in a court, a spokesperson for the office said in a statement in response to the questions over whether or not the teen was in fact holding a gun at the time of the shooting. Errors like that cannot happen, and this has to be addressed with the individual involved. The video speaks for itself. Speaking on behalf of Toledo's family, attorney Adina Weiss-Ortiz said the body cam video was hard for the family to watch. Surveillance video from Farragut High School provides a different angle of the shooting. The family's attorney believes Toledo tossed the gun behind the fence before turning to face the officer. The Civilian Office of Police Accountability and the Cook County State's Attorney's Office were conducting investigations of the shooting. The attorney said right now the family just wants justice for Adam. As well they should have. Now, once again, just like Potter and just like Chauvin, this needs to go to trial. And the police officer, who I believe is the named, let's get this up here, Reuben Roman, I believe is the police officer involved in this, should face trial. Yes, he should. Whether it's an open and shut case, whether they go and stretch it out for a month and a half at this point like they did with Chauvin, or he's just in, he's booked, maybe even pleads down, or comes out and pleads guilty to it. Either way, he should be allowed to have his day in court. We don't just convict people on the court of social media anymore. But I'd like to hear his story at least. But on this, I mean, with everything else that I see for this, I see a pretty quick case. Murder 2. 40 years. Go and have it. We'll see what the attorneys have to say for it, of course. I don't even know when this shooting happened. I thought this was possibly a few weeks ago. Let's see what WGN has to say about this one. Prosecutor who said Adam Toledo had a gun in his hand, not fully informed. From Bradley, Sam Charles, Nexstar Media Wire. A key detail raised in court about the fatal police shooting of 13-year-old Adam Toledo may have been wrong. During a bond hearing for 21-year-old Reuben Roman, who was with Adam the night of the shooting, Cook County Assistant State's Attorney James Murphy described the altercation in a proffer. The officer tells Toledo to drop it. As Toledo turns towards the officer, Toledo had a gun in his right hand. But now, in response to a WGN Investigates inquiry, the state's attorney office says the detail about Adam having a gun in his hand the moment he was shot was inaccurate. An attorney who works for the office failed to fully inform himself before speaking in court. Sarah Sinovic, a spokesperson for Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox, told WGN Investigates, "It comes just before the Civilian Office of Police Accountability releases several videos of the incident." Prosecutors also told the judge in Roman's case that Toledo's right hand tested positive for gunshot residue. When asked during a Thursday news conference at City Hall, Mayor Lori Lightfoot declined to say whether videos she had seen showed the 13-year-old with a gun in his hand. Police have said a 9mm Ruger was found along the fence near where Toledo was shot. So, I still don't know exactly where this happened, or when this happened, I should say. I'll have to go and explore that just a little bit more, but there are a couple moving parts to this, and there are a couple parts where the thin blue line people are going to come out and look at this and say, see, he was at fault, which I actually don't buy in this case, because once you've turned and your hands are up, you are unarmed. Now, if I was a police officer involved in something like this, I would keep that gun trained, finger probably out of the trigger guard, until I got up and at least got the kid in cuffs, because he did shoot the gun at some point. His hand did test positive for the residue on this. And I don't know what happened. We don't know what happened before the body cam footage started. We don't know if he was shooting at the police. Either way, hands are up and he shouldn't be doing this, but yeah, this was handled wrongly. From what I've seen from the video, which of course you can't show on YouTube because age restriction, from what I can see, and I'm not a lawyer or a juror at this point, but from what I can see, this was handled poorly. And yes, the officer involved should stand trial at least and see what he can present, what the defense can present to the jury. But that would be I would not want to be the defense attorney on this one. This would be very, very hard for me to come out with a proper defense off of. And he was 13 on top of that. I know a lot of people right now, they're coming back and they're trying to draw the comparisons between this kid and Kyle Rittenhouse, who killed in self-defense. And Rittenhouse is free to walk around, and he killed 2 people, and Toledo was such a sweet, sweet boy. Let's just let the facts come out of this. Of course, we're not going to let the facts come out of this. This is going to get tried in the court of social media. That's going to very, very much influence the court of Cook County, and I don't know where this is going to come, but once again, this is very interesting that this comes out just a few days after the Kim Potter involved shooting. And as the Derek Chauvin trial is moving in to its final deliberations, the jury's going to start deliberating next week. The Chauvin trial is essentially over. And we could see results on the Chauvin trial as early as Tuesday. Just so you guys are aware of that, how that timeline's going. So let's move on. Let's go talk about the Chauvin trial. Please support ads, or allow ads rather, to support our journalism. From the Hill, judge warns of mistrial in Chauvin case if prosecution witness even hints at newly discovered evidence from Heiress Folly. The judge in the George Floyd case rejected a request by the prosecution on Thursday to enter newly discovered evidence in the murder trial of Derek Chauvin that would have contained information about Floyd's carbon monoxide levels during his arrest, warning of a mistrial if the results were mentioned by the rebuttal witness before the jury. Judge Peter Cahill ruled against the admission of evidence, saying it was unfair to the defense. Cahill said the prosecution had an opportunity earlier to provide the evidence. Since it knew Fowler was raising the issue of carbon monoxide, he said allowing it now would prejudice the jury. It's untimely to give the notice, and it prejudiced the defense by the late disclosure, even if it's not due to bad faith, but the late disclosure has prejudiced the defense. It's not going to be allowed, Cahill said. Yeah, like I said yesterday, that was probably devastating to the defense when the guy started talking about carbon monoxide levels. Prosecutor Jerry Blackwell had told the court that the state had just received blood gas evidence from Hennepin County medical examiner Andrew Baker, who performed Floyd's autopsy, that we're going to kick this back up to the top. Prosecutor Jerry Blackwell told the court that the state had just received blood gas evidence from Hennepin County Medical Examiner Andrew Baker, who performed Floyd's autopsy, that contained readings for carbon monoxide content in his blood on the day that he was arrested. The evidence, Blackwell said, was discovered after former chief medical examiner, called by the defense as an expert witness, speculated in court that Floyd could have been exposed to carbon monoxide when he was pressed on the ground under Chauvin's knee near a squad car last May. I'm sorry, that sounds fabricated to me. That sounds like the defense witness came up and said, well, there might have been carbon monoxide. And then the prosecutor came back and said, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Go find me carbon monoxide. You go find that for me because I need to admit this in a court. Which is kind of bullshit. And honestly, it does call me into question the opinion of the medical examiner in Hennepin County. I don't know about you, but if I'm trying to determine a cause of death, I would go to rule out everything, however improbable, including looking for carbon monoxide. The fact that the medical examiner looked at this and didn't test for that when he went back and tested for everything else in the blood, if he did or didn't, by the way, because I still have questions about whether or not this is fabricated at this point. But if this is the case, I have questions about that medical examiner. If he went in there looking for the actual cause of death, or if he went in there to go try to fill a narrative. I have serious questions and serious reasonable doubt at this point if the medical examiner hadn't tested for carbon monoxide at the first time he went through this. I would go mistrial on this just for the fact that the prosecution is trying to fabricate evidence at this point. This is so shifty and shady right now. I don't even know if I would trust what the jury is going to come back with. I don't. I have no idea. But the fact that the prosecution goes out, looks at this and says, okay, well, hurry up, go find carbon monoxide. Give me the gas test once again. This raises all kinds of red flags to this trial and the case that the prosecution came up with. This raises all kinds of red flags to me. But that's what we see going back with that. Let's see what CNN has to say about this. Derek Chauvin says he will not testify at trial and testimony ends. Closings are set for Monday. From Eric Levinson and Aaron Cooper. Derek Chauvin invoked his Fifth Amendment right not to testify on Thursday, and the defense rested its case as the trial of George Floyd's death neared its final stages. Closing arguments are set for Monday, after which the jury will be sequestered during deliberations. Chauvin, speaking into a microphone before the jury entered the court, said it was his decision and his decision alone not to testify. No, I'm sure Eric Nelson had a hand in that one too. I'm sorry, Derek. Questioning from his attorney, Eric Nelson suggested a tense internal debate on the issue. I have advised you, and to say that we have gone back and forth on the matter would be kind of an understatement, wouldn't it? Nelson said. Yes, it is, Chauvin said. If he had chosen to testify, prosecutors would have been allowed to cross-examine him. Defense attorney, after the defense rested its case, prosecutors called Dr. Martin Tobin, the pulmonologist who testified last week, to take the stand again for a short rebuttal against the defense's medical expert. The former Minneapolis police officer's defense team called 7 witnesses in their attempt to acquit Chauvin on charges of murder and manslaughter. The police use of force expert testified Tuesday that Chauvin's restraint of Floyd was justified, and forensic pathologists testified Wednesday that Floyd's cause of death was undetermined, saying his underlying heart issues were the main causes. In my opinion, Mr. Floyd had a sudden cardiac arrhythmia due to his atherosclerosis and hypertensive heart disease during his restraint at subdual by police, said David Fowler, a forensic pathologist who retired as Maryland's chief medical examiner at the end of 2019. Fowler also put forth a novel argument that carbon monoxide from the squad car's exhaust may have contributed to Floyd's death, a theory that he admitted could not support with any data or test results. Prosecutors told the court Thursday morning they had just become aware the night before of the results of blood gas readings that showed Floyd's carbon monoxide levels were normal. However, Judge Peter Cahill said the test results would not be allowed because they had advance notice that Dr. Fowler would bring up his carbon monoxide theory. He warned that any discussion of the carbon monoxide blood test would lead to a mistrial. It's untimely to give the notice this morning and would prejudice the defense by the late disclosure, even if it's not due to bad faith, Cahill said. In his rebuttal on Thursday, Tobin said the carbon monoxide theory is proven wrong by a different blood test, thereby avoiding the judge's concerns. The test showed that Floyd's blood oxygen saturation was 98%, meaning his carbon monoxide level could at most be 2%, which is within the normal range. Several other defense witnesses have testified about Floyd's drug use, particularly during a prior arrest in May 2019, in which he ingested opioids as police approached him in a vehicle. Together, the witnesses furthered the defense's three main arguments in the case: that Floyd died due to drug and health problems, that Chauvin's use of force was ugly but appropriate, and that a hostile crowd of bystanders distracted Chauvin. There's so much going on with this trial and so much that's on here, but looking back and seeing everything else that went along with this, and we've got a couple more things going along with this, especially, I don't think that DC expects that anything good is going to come out of this, in their favor anyway, but I see enough reasonable doubt that I'd be very, very worried if I lived in Minneapolis right now. I see very much enough reasonable doubt. I don't see a proof that Chauvin is innocent, but in our court system, you don't have to prove innocence. You prove guilt. So Chauvin's not taking the stand, which is probably a good idea. I know Eric Nelson, it sounds like, wanted him to go up there. I cannot imagine any scenario in the world at all where putting Derek Chauvin on the stand would be a good thing. I can't find any situation where that could be a good thing. Apparently there is a situation, but I don't see it. So, closing arguments are coming. I've got an opinion piece here from NBC News that I just want to go over a touch. Chauvin trial defense rests after smearing George Floyd with false overdose theory. We cannot allow racist, breathless myths about drugs distract us from the actual facts. What if the drugs are the actual facts? You fucking nematode. This is by Dr. Ryan Marino, emergency physician and medical toxicologist. I can't breathe! Those were the last words called out repeatedly by George Floyd, whose death in the custody of police officers last spring was captured on video and witnessed by millions. Derek Chauvin, an officer in that video, can clearly be seen kneeling on Floyd's neck for over 9 minutes. That's not clear, by the way. His murder trial this month has reopened never quite healed wounds. It has also recycled old and misleading stereotypes about drug abuse and addiction. In the year since Floyd died, many details about his life have been shared publicly that he cannot respond to. Chauvin's defense has focused on some of these aspects, even though Floyd is not on trial. The defense, which rested its case Thursday, has spent a considerable amount of time discussing Floyd's drug use. Defense attorney Eric Nelson has repeatedly mentioned drugs, going so far as to suggest Floyd's death may have been due to an overdose. The scenario has been disputed by Dr. Andrew Baker, the medical examiner who examined Floyd's body. As an emergency physician and medical toxicologist, a specialist in how drugs, medications, and overdoses affect the human body, who has further specialized in the treatment of addiction and drug use, I spend a significant amount of my time studying, witnessing, and treating drug use in humans. I've unfortunately seen more overdoses from fentanyl in particular than I could possibly count. However, I also frequently see misinformation about drugs and drug use, particularly fentanyl and the people who use them. There remain competing theories posited by a veritable parade of medical experts about what exactly caused Floyd's death, but what's very clear to me is that George Floyd did not die from an overdose. First, while both fentanyl and methamphetamine were detected in an autopsy, the levels detected were not high enough to suggest a fatal overdose. Really? Additionally, post-mortem drug levels are notoriously inaccurate and do not reliably reflect pre-death levels. Okay, then why do we always, especially when it comes to a drunken driving incident, why do we always hear the dramatic pause of ex-driver, when he died, had a blood alcohol content over 4 times the legal allowed limit when he smashed his car into a tree? I think it's a little more accurate than you want to come back and lead on. And even still, 11 nanograms per milliliter, 3 times the amount. Even if it's wildly inaccurate, if you're seeing 3 times the amount in somebody's bloodstream, first off, this is the first question I have to ask about this. If these are so wildly inaccurate, like you have to say in this article, then why do we even discuss them? Why do they do a tox screen? Why, if the post-mortem levels are this inaccurate and this wrong, why would you ever do a tox screen? Why would it ever matter? Why would you even consider doing something like that? Second, we can see that Floyd was awake, talking and desperately trying to breathe right up until he died. Fentanyl and other opioids caused the exact opposite effect. Yeah, but meth doesn't. Opioids act on the brainstem, the part of the brain that controls breathing, to suppress breathing. Not only do opioids suppress breathing, opioids also suppress respiratory drive. They take away even the desire to breathe. We commonly prescribe opioids to help people who are dying or suffering from serious respiratory problems to stop them from feeling air hunger. In other words, opioids like fentanyl actually prevent people from knowing they can't breathe and from feeling like they can't breathe. Another assertion the defense has made was that drugs like fentanyl gave Floyd superhuman strength. This theory is supposed to justify extreme physical response from police, even though video shows us that Floyd was already handcuffed in a prone position, which, when forcefully restrained, is also known to impair breathing, and in the custody of 4 adult male police officers, who were all half his size, by the way. All half of Floyd's size, by the way. So this is a guy who's coming out and trying to tell you, this is planting the seeds, is essentially what this is doing. And this is another incident, and I talked about this yesterday, where they're coming out there trying to get a specific narrative off of this. They want something. NBC opinion, and especially this guy, wants Minneapolis to burn because there's enough reasonable doubt. There's no way that this article can get to the jury. They're sequestered at this point. And if they're not sequestered at this point, they will be sequestered on Monday. So this is to outrage the people who are then going to see this article, and then they're going to turn around and see, oh, well, they still didn't get to a not guilty. Let's burn this mother down. The fact of the matter is there is enough reasonable doubt in the case that the prosecution brought forward that unless these jurors are completely afraid to death for the fate of their homes and their families in Minneapolis, there is no way to give a guilty verdict off of this. From the facts that I've seen off of this, and I've been reading this from left-wing news outlets entirely. I have been reading this almost entirely from CNN and HuffPo and NBC. And I still look at the prosecution's case and I say, there's no way. There's no way that you could possibly come back with a guilty with the weak case that they brought forward. And now somebody's going to come out of this and say, oh, well, Dr. Ryan Marino said that it's impossible for him to have died of a drug overdose. Well, that means it's murder. And we let a murderer get away. Kill all the police. They're looking for something to happen. And I hope everybody's ready for it. All right. From WKOW, ABC 27. This is from right here in Wisconsin, by the way. Jury can't hold decision not to testify against Chauvin. From Andrew Merica. A jury must decide the fate of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin without hearing from Chauvin himself. Chauvin is charged with second-degree unintentional murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter in the killing of George Floyd in May of 2020. His defense team rested its case Thursday afternoon without calling Chauvin to the stand, a decision Chauvin told the judge was his own. It's been 2.5 weeks since the opening statements in the case. In total, the prosecution called 38 witnesses in 11 days, while the defense has called 7 witnesses in just 2 days. UW-Madison law professor Keith Finley says juries must take into account testimony from witnesses, but they're instructed not to judge defendants differently if they do not testify, since everyone has a Fifth Amendment right to not to. Now, that's the law in the books. Does a jury infer negative things from the failure to testify? Finley said. Once they get into the jury room, nobody knows what they do, and nobody knows what's going on inside their heads. Finley says having a defendant testify is always risky and opens them up to harsh cross-examination. Exactly. You ultimately sometimes make the best case about what kind of communicator you are, how likable you are, how nervous you might get, or a wide range of things that may not have anything to do with guilt, he said. Chauvin has never spoken publicly about George Floyd's death, though some were interested to hear how he would have characterized what happened that day. Yeah, but he doesn't have to. He does not have to face down a prosecutor or give his own statement. That's one of the things that's built into our common law system, is that no man should for any reason be forced to incriminate himself or bear witness to himself. The state has a case. Let the state prove it. And in any trial whatsoever, whether it be for a $10 petty theft from a convenience store, all the way up to second, third-degree murder, and even first-degree murder, if something were to come off of this. If the state has the case, then the state should be able to prove it without bringing the witness back up. And I actually have to bet that in the prosecution room, before this trial went up, all these state attorneys were looking at this and said, oh, I just can't wait to get Chauvin up on the stand because I'm going to eat him alive. I wouldn't go up there either. That's one thing you keep in mind when you're doing something like this. If you're ever involved in something like this, if the police get involved to you, you do not answer their questions unless you retain an attorney first. And you do not testify against yourself, no matter what. If the state wants to put you in a cell, they have to fucking work for it. So, that's what we're seeing back up off of this. Let's see what's going on around the rest of the country. From ABC 7 News, time off canceled for D.C. police officers due to expected verdict in Chauvin trial, from 7 News staff. The Metropolitan Police Department is canceling all time off for officers next week due to an expected verdict in the Derek Chauvin trial in Minneapolis. In anticipation of potential First Amendment activities. Oh, the news speak. The news speak. Oh my God. In anticipation of potential First Amendment activities related to the outcomes of the Derek Chauvin trial, the Metropolitan Police Department will be fully activated with members on 12-hour shifts starting on Monday, April 19th, 2021 until further notice. A statement released on Thursday says, MPD members will have a visible presence around the city during this time. Testimony in Chauvin's murder trial for the death of George Floyd ended Thursday, and closing arguments are set to begin on Monday. Floyd was a black man who was arrested on suspicion of passing a counterfeit $20 bill at a neighborhood market last May. Bystander video of Floyd gasping that he couldn't breathe as bystanders yelled at Chauvin to get off him triggered worldwide protests, violence, and a furious examination of racism and policing in the U.S. It also kicked off several days of protests in the district. Most of the demonstrations were peaceful, but there were some instances of destruction and looting. Yeah, that's why there was a 10-foot fucking fence around the White House. Because it was all peaceful. Love to see how that one got fucking memory hold. You know, you remember you had to go and call the Donald Bunker Don because he went down in the bunker because Secret Service told him that he had to. Get out of here with that fucking shit, you guys. Prosecutors say Floyd died because the officer's knee was pressed against Floyd's neck for close to 9.5 minutes as he lay on the pavement on his stomach, his hands cuffed behind him, and his face jammed against the ground. Law enforcement veterans inside and outside the Minneapolis department testified for the prosecution that Chauvin used excessive force and went against his training, while medical experts say Floyd died of asphyxia or lack of oxygen because his breathing was constricted by the way he was held down. No, that is false. Law enforcement veterans inside and outside the Minneapolis Police Department put Derek Chauvin up as a sacrificial lamb so that he can get prosecuted and put in prison, and maybe, just maybe, BLM will leave the Minneapolis precinct alone and not try to kill these people. Chauvin is the sacrificial lamb for this. If you think otherwise, go back and look at everything that's happened over the last 2.5 weeks. Derek Chauvin is a sacrificial lamb. As these people look back and say, please, please don't hurt us anymore. Even there, I could possibly see shoulder, but I can't, with the angle, you can't tell. Chauvin attorney Eric Nelson called police use of force expert and a forensic pathologist to help make the case that Chauvin acted reasonably using a struggling suspect and that Floyd died because of an underlying heart condition and his illegal drug use. Floyd had high blood pressure and narrowed arteries. Fentanyl and methamphetamine were found in his system. The only time Chauvin has been heard defending himself was when the jury listened to body cam footage from the scene after an ambulance had taken Floyd away. Chauvin told the bystander, "We got to control this guy because he's a sizable guy and it looks like he's probably on something." So, and there again, I don't even know if, like I said, let me back that up. I don't think that there is sufficient evidence that if we were in the standard that Chauvin had to prove himself innocent, that he could have done that. But luckily, in this country, with our English jurisprudence system, you don't have to prove your innocence. You are presumed innocent. No matter what Twitch troll comes in here to try and say that we saw the video, we presume guilty, and everybody else should presume guilty. No matter what. And that was the same thing that I said yesterday. How terrifying it is that Peter Cahill came out and said that it was his job to act in the interests of the state. No, it is not. It is your job to be impartial. You are a judge. You are not a prosecutor. You presume innocence. The state has to present its case. You are not an agent of the state. And really, honestly, with that statement, Hennepin County needs to recall that asshole immediately. Peter Cahill needs to be recalled. But looking at this and looking at the shaky trial that came out of the prosecution, there's enough reasonable doubt. Just in reasonable doubt alone, there's enough reasonable doubt to say, we cannot determine guilt in this beyond a reasonable doubt. Derek, have a nice day. At which Chauvin, I think, should turn around and sue the Minneapolis Police Department and Hennepin County on top of this. But we'll see what happens off of this, and it's not just DC that's looking at this. Chicago's ramping up police, which is funny because they're trying to defund the police at the same time. Portland, Minneapolis itself, Madison and Milwaukee are shoring up. You can see what's going on there. People are starting to board up windows. Madison's going to burn. Madison is going to burn. I know enough about Madison, Wisconsin that it's going to burn. So, strap yourselves in, guys. This is going to be one to watch. All right. Let's talk a little bit more about what's going on in policing in this country. Simon & Schuster won't distribute a book by a Louisville police officer involved in Breonna Taylor raid. From Malika Kalingal and Anna Sterla. Simon & Schuster said it won't distribute a book written by the Louisville police officer who was shot while executing a no-knock warrant at the home of Breonna Taylor, who was killed in the raid. Sergeant Jonathan Mattingly's book, The Fight for Truth, the inside story behind the Breonna Taylor tragedy, was to be published by Post Hill Press. A senior publicist, Devin Brown, confirmed to the Louisville Courier-Journal earlier this Thursday. Simon & Schuster said it only learned about the book being published by its distribution client, Post Hill Press, on Thursday. We have subsequently decided not to be involved in the distribution of this book, the publishing company said in a statement. Mattingly's lawyer has declined to comment on the matter. Of the Post Hill Press has not returned CNN's request for a comment. All right, this is where it gets into the propaganda. Taylor, an EMT and aspiring nurse, was killed in her own home on March 13, 2020, when 3 Louisville police officers executing a no-knock warrant returned gunfire after her boyfriend fired a warning shot because he thought he was shooting at intruders. There is so much propaganda in that statement, in and of itself, because none of that is true. Nothing in that statement is true. Now, nothing that's true that would counter that statement means that Taylor deserved to die. I will tell you that. But you can make the case that she was wrongfully killed while actually telling the truth. But of course, this narrative here riles people up, and then you get riots in the fucking street. Mattingly, Detective Miles Cosgrove, and then Officer Brett Hankinson used a battering ram to force open the door up to the 26-year-old's apartment. Mattingly told investigators he entered the apartment and felt the heat of a bullet hit his leg. The round, fired by Taylor's boyfriend Kenneth Walker III, severed his femoral artery. He and 2 other officers returned fire. Last October, Mattingly sued Walker for battery, assault, and emotional distress. He claimed he was entitled to damages for medical treatment, trauma, and the pain he suffered after he was fired upon by Walker, who was with Taylor the moment she was fatally shot by police. At the time, Mattingly's attorney, Kent Wicker, said his client was shot and nearly killed by Walker. He's entitled to and should use the legal process to seek a remedy for the injury that Walker has caused him, Wicker said in a statement. Yeah, no, he shouldn't. Now, yes, there were other situations going along with this. But if you take a no-knock warrant, you've accepted the risks entailed in a no-knock warrant. If you're the officer that comes up, looks at this warrant, and says, yeah, I'll go pick that guy up. You've accepted the risks of everything else that could come with that, including the fact that you might get your ass shot. No-knock warrants should be illegal in and of themselves, and I could spend years discussing that phenomenon. I could spend absolute years discussing why no-knock warrants should be outlawed entirely. But in the universe where they are legal, if you accept one, you have accepted the risks that come along with having the no-knock warrant. I hate to tell you that, but that's the truth. So, no, he shouldn't sue. As far as the book goes, yes, this is going to be another digital book burning, but I mean, what do you come to expect from major publishers at this point? And it is the right to say, yes, I will distribute this, and no, I won't. I can see where Schuster would not want to be involved with this because the activists are going to go and burn Schuster down. And it wouldn't even matter because Schuster is a fairly left-leaning publication company. But even without that, even if I was the Daily Wire, I would still be worried about publishing this because Well, maybe not the Daily Wire, because they'll just come out and say, "Okay, King, I will lawyer you to death, and I will make sure that you won't come back and attack my building." But even moderate publication companies, I would still be wary about publishing this one just because of what the activists plan to do. So I can understand why they're doing it. I don't know if I would even care to read something like this or not, but the book may or may not be coming in the near future. We'll see if they can find a distribution site. All right. Let's talk about James O'Keefe from the New York Post. Veritas founder James O'Keefe's Twitter suspended after CNN expose. From Laura Italiano. Project Veritas founder James O'Keefe on Twitter account was suspended Thursday, a day after he released the secretly recorded video of a CNN staffer boasting that his network produced propaganda aimed at defeating President Trump during the 2020 election. Twitter gave no immediate reason for the suspension, and a message on the account link said only that it was disabled due to violation of Twitter rules. And I'm sure that where it says, "Here's the specific Twitter rule you violated," it was blank. Just like when they do it with anybody else at this point. CNN technical director Charlie Chester was featured in Project Veritas' undercover video on Wednesday, saying that the network brought in medical experts to overdramatize Trump's coronavirus health issues. The admissions were taped during a fake Tinder date, in which Chester boasted the network got Trump out of office. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. Because some good-looking chick went up there and made the guy think that he was about to get a piece of ass. So he's coming out and saying whatever he can to go out and brag about this. Look what we did. We got Trump out. I'm 100% going to say it and 100% believe that it wasn't for CNN. I don't know that Trump would have got voted out, Chester said, adding that he came to work at CNN because he wanted to be a part of that. Our focus was to get Trump out of office, right? Without saying it, that's what it was. Chester also bragged that the sting tape that the network played up the COVID-19 death toll for ratings on order from top CNN brass. Both Twitter and Facebook took extraordinary censorship measures against the Post in October of 2020 over its exposés about Hunter Biden's emails, with Twitter baselessly charging that hacked materials were used. Yeah, I think the Post is a little bit salty at that one. Twitter kept the Post's primary account locked for 2 weeks leading up to the election, after the Post refused Twitter's demand that it delete 6 tweets that linked the stories that the company claimed, without any evidence, were based on hacked information from a Hunter Biden laptop left with a repairman. The Post never budged and kept the tweets on the account during the standoff, even as Twitter obscured them from view. In a series of tweets, the social media giant said it was revising its hacked materials policy and updating our practice of not retroactively overturning prior enforcement. Basically, they're making it up as they go. But yeah, O'Keefe is off. O'Keefe has no more Twitter. So those Project Veritas videos that especially the one we just watched yesterday, those are going to become a little bit harder to come by. We'll still be able to get them, and he's still on BitChute, by the way. So it may still happen, but it's not going to happen through Twitter anymore. All right. From Fox News. Twitter accused of protecting CNN after tech giant bans James O'Keefe. They're all on the same team. This isn't news. We know that. That's been proven to us, time over time for the last 4 years. From Joseph A. Wolfzone. Critics accused Twitter Thursday of banning Project Veritas founder James O'Keefe from its platform over the right-wing guerrilla news outlets' damning expose of CNN. Project Veritas relaunched its Expose CNN campaign this week by sharing footage of CNN technical director Charles Chester revealing the liberal network's dirty laundry. In footage, Chester claimed that CNN's focus during the 2020 election campaign was to get rid of President Trump, that the network hyped its coronavirus coverage for gangbuster ratings, and that it aims to help Black Lives Matter. On Thursday, O'Keefe's Twitter account, which was sharing Project Veritas' reporting, permanently suspended over alleged use of fake accounts. As outlined in our policy on platform manipulation and spam, you can't mislead others on Twitter by operating fake accounts, and you can't artificially amplify or disrupt conversations through the use of multiple accounts, a Twitter spokesperson told Fox News. Oops. Somebody better tell Britt that. O'Keefe categorically denied Twitter's assertions, telling Fox News that he vows to sue the tech giant for defamation. Twitter declined to comment. When asked what fake accounts O'Keefe allegedly used, the company also did not respond to requests for comments on O'Keefe's pending lawsuit. Which is funny, of course, because, you look at something like AOC Biscuit, or Ilhan Omar, or Rashida Tlaib, or even Joe Biden's account, the POTUS account right now, which mysteriously, as soon as all of them post something, have 140,000 likes on them or more, sometimes up to the 300, 400,000 likes immediately, like within minutes of them posting it. You don't think those fuckers are botting? If you don't think those guys are botting, I've got oceanfront property in Wisconsin that I want to sell you today. No, trust me, that's actually an ocean. But of course, they're not going to come back and comment on that because then they would have to prove their case. And instead, fucking Dorsey's just going to come back out and say, Tim, that's a problem, and we're looking into it. With his fingers crossed. So, that's what we're seeing from that. I got one archived from Newsweek. On the same vein, Project Veritas founder James O'Keefe says he'll sue Twitter for accusing him of having fake accounts. From Ayla Slisko. Project Veritas founder James O'Keefe plans to sue Twitter on Monday after social media platform banned him for allegedly operating fake accounts. Well, and that's actually, he's got a case, especially if he doesn't have any fake accounts. He's got a case because there's a contract set out, terms of use. And if he didn't violate the terms of use, especially on the claims that they're putting out there, that he's using multiple accounts, if he didn't violate the terms of use, then Twitter is in breach of contract. O'Keefe vowed to file a defamation lawsuit. Yeah, no, I would go with breach of contract, not defamation, against Twitter and make the company pay for accusing him of operating fake accounts or using multiple accounts. Twitter said that O'Keefe's account was suspended for allegedly violating rules against platform manipulation and spam, which include both specific charges. I am suing Twitter for defamation because they said I operated fake accounts, O'Keefe said in a statement. This is false, this is defamatory, and they will pay. Section 230 may have protected them before, but it will not protect them from me. The complaint will be filed on Monday. The account of Veritas, a conservative group known for recording hidden camera videos, it says exposed corruption and dishonesty, was permanently banned in February. Twitter alleged that it had violated the company's policy against doxing by showing the home address of a Facebook executive in the video, which the group denied doing. O'Keefe's account was temporarily suspended at the same time, but later restored. Twitter said the Thursday's suspension is permanent. Well, that's your best reason to go to alt tech at this point. And O'Keefe does have a Parler page. I believe he has a Gab page as well. But Twitter's going to keep doing this. And somebody else made out the very entertaining point that pretty soon Twitter is just going to be Cher and Ron Perlman. And everybody else will be purged off of there, yelling back and forth at each other at how much they hate Trump and how much they worship Biden. That's what Twitter's going to be pretty soon, if they keep purging people the way they're purging people. All right, let's keep going. I got one from The Blaze for you guys. It's a little bit of good news, because we've had so many bad news stories throughout the day. Nancy Pelosi says court packing bill won't get a vote. From Chris Pandolfo. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is opposed to an effort by some congressional Democrats to expand the number of justices on the U.S. Supreme Court from 9 to 13, and will not permit such a bill to come to the House floor for a vote, at least not for now. Which is amazing, by the way. I think she might have taken Harry Reid's advice. Because Harry Reid, you'll remember, we talked about this last week. Harry Reid, it was earlier this week actually, came out and said that, no, you will regret this. And I think Pelosi actually heeded that warning. During her weekly press briefing on Thursday, Pelosi said that she's not necessarily opposed to expanding the court, but for now we'll wait for findings from the commission President Biden established to study the issue. I support the president's commission to study such a proposal, Pelosi said, telling reporters that the House's focus, for the time being, is on infrastructure. And remember that childcare is infrastructure and paid time off is infrastructure. Human infrastructure. I don't know that that's a good idea or a bad idea. I think it's an idea that to be considered. And I think the president's taking the right approach to have a commission to study such a thing, the speaker said, according to the New York Post. So that's some good news for you. Because, yeah, I think that Pelosi got the fucking message. That if you do this, you are going to get punished at the ballot box. And then the Republicans will have free reign to do the same thing or worse. I.e., changing the filibuster rule for Supreme Court justices after Reid himself changed it for lower court nominees. So good on Nancy. Good on her. For knowing what's actually going to take down her political power. I mean, hell, if you packed the Supreme Court at this point, Christ, you might see California go red at that point. Because enough Northern Californians are going to come out and they're going to do whatever it takes to get back out. You might see New York go red. I don't think you would, but you might. Because it's time that these people will get punished at the ballot box if they keep going down this dictatorial path. Let's talk about Matt Gaetz. Because that hasn't been talked to death at this point. McCarthy says Gaetz won't be punished unless charges are filed. From Lexi Lonis. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy said that Representative Matt Gaetz will not be punished amid sex trafficking allegations unless charges are filed. Matt Gaetz is the same as any American. He's innocent till proven guilty, McCarthy said, after a reporter asked about Gaetz being removed from the House Judiciary Committee. The AP reported. There's no charge against him yet. If a charge comes forward, that will be dealt with at the time, McCarthy added. Gaetz is being investigated by the Justice Department for allegations he had a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old. There could be a possible violation of sex trafficking laws if the allegations are found to be true. But not local police or the FBI. Keep that in mind. However, Gaetz has denied all accusations against him and has said he will not resign. McCarthy told reporters that Gaetz said in a private conversation that he was innocent. Democrats have called for him to be taken off the Judiciary Committee, but GOP House rules say that members aren't allowed to remove from their committees unless there's a formal charge brought against them for a serious felony, AP reported. Tell that to Marjorie Taylor Greene. McCarthy said he won't get into hypothetical questions when a reporter asked if Gaetz could be removed without a formal charge if new accusations are brought forward. Which means that they probably got something in the works and they're planning on something. That's a hypothetical question. I'll deal with whatever issue as it comes. As of right now, Matt Gaetz says he's innocent. There's an investigation going on, and I'll let the investigation take care of itself, McCarthy said. Well, good. And as I said, if Gaetz did this, he's a fucking scumbag, and get him out of Congress as quick as you can. But if this is just a run-of-the-mill fucking hit job coming from House and Senate Democrats, then give him his day in court. And show me where you've got this open and shut case. Impeach the motherfucker if you've got the evidence. Otherwise, sit down and shut the fuck up. We see some walking back from Stacey Abrams from Newsweek, archived once again. Stacey Abrams' organization tells Hollywood to stay and fight in Georgia, from Emma Nolan. Stacey Abrams' organization Fair Fight has called on Hollywood to stay and fight in Georgia after restrictive voting laws passed in the state. The specter of a Hollywood boycott is once again looming, with Will Smith's upcoming film Emancipation the first to pull its production from the state this week. We cannot in good conscience provide economic support to a government that enacts regressive voting laws that are designed to restrict voter access, Smith said in a statement along with director Antoine Fuqua. The new Georgia voting laws are reminiscent of voting impediments that were passed at the end of Reconstruction to prevent many Americans from voting. Regrettably, we feel compelled to move our film production work from Georgia to another state. And the people of Rome, Georgia, and Savannah, and everywhere outside of Atlanta looked at that and said, okay, bye. But Stacey Abrams has figured out the algorithm on this one. And she realizes that, yes, these big woke companies are coming and they're starting to boycott the state and move their operations out of state. Their idea is that they're going to punish Georgia with reduced tax dollars, that they're not going to be paying taxes in Georgia anymore. But guess what? You're taking all those votes with you. The Hollywood companies know that too, because on what they're going to try and do, they're going to try to go back and move a bunch of people into the state who are going to be there for the required year so they can vote in the state. I think it's a year. It's either a year or 6 months, but they'll be there for the required 6 months. So they live in the state and can vote in the state legally by voter ID. And now they're going to go move to another state and they won't be able to vote in Georgia. Abrams figured out the algorithm, you guys. I really wanted to see more of these people pick up and move out of there. And a solid red Georgia come back. Georgia's new election law imposes tough new voter ID requirements, restricts ballot drop boxes, and limits absentee ballots and early voting. Wrong, 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 and wrong. It also allows for the Republican-controlled state election board to take over any county election board that it considers problematic. Yeah, that's the way it is in most states. Georgia boasts extensive production infrastructure, has been home to a number of major Hollywood productions over the past few years, but a boycott was threatened from movie and TV giants like Disney and Netflix back in 2019 over the restrictive heartbeat anti-abortion legislation. However, the Georgia-based national voting rights organization Fair Fight has urged such companies to stay and support the communities that have made the state's film industry thrive. No, it's not about making the film industry thrive. It's about, let's get warm bodies into Georgia as quick as we can. Out-of-work actors and actresses, I want them coming to Georgia, getting on Georgia benefits so they can vote in Georgia. Producers and actors, I want them all in Georgia, living in Georgia, so they can vote in Georgia. So, Abrams has figured out the algorithm. All right, I got just a couple more, then we will do the live chat for the day. Which, I took the day off for the live stream tomorrow, so I will be sleeping most of the day, so we can actually stay over just a little bit longer at this point. It's not going to be like last Friday when we had to go running out at the end of the day. From the Daily Wire, Nancy Pelosi appears to flip-flop on Afghanistan. Again, from Ian Hayworth. Earlier this week, President Biden announced that he was planning to pull all U.S. troops out of Afghanistan by September 11, 2021, the 20th anniversary of the deadliest terror attack in American history, when he extended the May 1st deadline set by former President Trump. The Afghan War is the longest war in U.S. history, stretching from just days before or after the September 11, 2001 terror attack that killed more than 3,000 Americans, all the way through the Barack and Trump presidential administrations, reported the Daily Wire. On Wednesday, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi released a statement regarding Biden's announcement. The Biden administration's announced timeline for the safe, strategic, and orderly departure of American troops in Afghanistan is an important and welcome development. As Speaker, I support this transition and President Biden's leadership to protect the safety of our troops and security of the American people, which must be our priority. The U.S. Congress remains committed to advancing peace and security in Afghanistan and the region, including an inclusive Afghan government that respects human rights of all its people. It's imperative that hard-won gains secured for Afghan women and girls are not erased. Congress will be working closely with the administration to ensure that our support for the Afghan partners remains strong and this transition is orderly and made in coordination with our allies, the statement continued. Let's see. Here's the one that she talked about back in 2020 when we were talking about this earlier. Our military and allies deserve strong, smart, and strategic leadership to protect America's security in that region. America went into Afghanistan with NATO, and it's concerning that Trump's withdrawal is being carried out without the close and comprehensive coordination of NATO. It's important to note that NATO is a key partner in contributing over half of the troop presence in Afghanistan. This hasty withdrawal does not appear to have a strategic plan that adequately anticipates contingencies, especially related to terrorism and the protection of our military, diplomats, and development present, Pelosi stated in November of 2020. I almost said 2017. So there it is. Whether this is a good idea or a bad idea depends on who is in office. That's your Pelosi for you. Flip-flop! All right, so Pelosi is a hypocrite, as usual. All right, I've got one from ABC 7 Eyewitness News out of New York. New video triggers backlash to Andrew Yang's candidacy for New York City mayor. From Dave Evans. As the race for the 110th mayor of New York City heats up, there's new criticism coming to light of frontrunner Andrew Yang. A video hit Twitter Thursday morning that shows an unidentified man use the B word to describe women, and Yang laughs in response. You don't use that word and absolutely do not get to engage in that behavior. It's not funny. We do not laugh and we do not turn our backs and walk away, candidate Maya Wiley said. Wiley called the video outrageous. A small group of progressive elected women, including State Senator Alessandra Biaggi and Assembly members Linda Rosenthal, Natalie Rosick, Carmen De La Rosa, and Catalina Cruz, released the following statement. We couldn't believe our eyes and ears when Andrew Yang was asked by supporters about violently assaulting women. He responded by laughing. This isn't a laughing matter, and it isn't just locker room talk. Language like this perpetuates real violence against women, and laughing at it is the latest in a long list of troubling evidence about Yang's character that follows countless reports of toxic masculinity, misogyny, and bro culture that have defined the past campaigns and companies. To put it plainly, this is disqualifying for someone who's seeking to be the mayor of New York. When too many political leaders have betrayed our trust, abused their power, and sexually harassed and assaulted women, we need public officials who will protect women instead of laugh at us. I don't even know what to say to that. And I hate to do whataboutism on something like this, but you got to point a couple things out when you look at something like this. One of the things you've got to point out when you look at something exactly like this in the exact same situation is that once you go into certain dark-skinned communities, they refer to all of their women as bitches. Constantly. Which I think is egregious, to be completely honest. And the women refer to themselves as that. If that's how you refer to yourself, what kind of worth do you think that you offer to the world? If you call yourself bitches. And these same people who are outraged over the fact that Yang said this on, I don't know if it was a hot mic or a hidden camera or what the hell it was, but the same people that are outraged over the fact that he said this and it got caught out there are outraged over the fact that James O'Keefe is doing this every day, and probably some of the same people who pushed Twitter to suspend O'Keefe's account for the fact that he's doing this exact same thing. Going out there, befriending somebody in one of these big organizations or campaigns, and getting them to say stupid shit out loud. So forgive me if I don't give a fuck what this caucus has to say. And I don't even like Andrew Yang. But I can defeat him on good ideas and bad ideas. I can defeat him on UBI. I don't have to go to some locker room tape to go pander to fucking progressive fourth waivers. Which tells me, and especially with some of the fourth waivers that are coming out doing this, they're probably in the same support of his ideas. They just want to be the ones in power and be the Politburo that's doing it. All right. So there's that. A little bit of good news for friends in New Hampshire, if I have any friends in New Hampshire watching this stream, or back on the replay. New Hampshire's mask mandate set to end on Friday, the government says. I don't have an author given for this one. Governor Chris Sununu said the statewide mask mandate will expire on Friday in New Hampshire. On making the announcement, Sununu urged the Granite State residents to continue to wearing masks while out in public because the virus is continuing to spread and hospitalizations are rising. The pandemic is not over, and we're not claiming victory by any means, Sununu said. He also specified that the end of the statewide mandate does not prevent private businesses or local municipalities from requiring masks, as they could before statewide mask mandate was issued. New Hampshire residents know how to keep ourselves and our neighbors safe without a state mask mandate, just as we did before the winter surge, he wrote on Twitter. Well, that's good. Live free or die. And once again, you will see situations where some of the private businesses will say, no, I still want you to have one on when you go in there. And always respect the private business. Always respect what they have to say, because it is private property. And if you don't respect their orders, they're trespassing. It's just the governor can't compel these businesses with their business license anymore, which is bullshit in and of itself. But the government can't compel it anymore. Now it's on the business and the municipality. And maybe the municipality government can compel it too, but it's on those local levels. The state of New Hampshire, whose capital is escaping me right now, but the state of New Hampshire can no longer impose this. So,
I'm excited.
Good on them. We'll see what happens coming back out of that as everything continues to try and autoplay. All right, last one. Then we'll do live chat. So if you're just lurking right now, get those last minute messages in so we can see what goes on for the day. Denmark becomes the first European nation to completely shun AstraZeneca COVID vaccine. No author given once again. Denmark announced on Tuesday that it would stop using the Oxford University AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine altogether, becoming the first European country to do so over suspected rare but serious side effects. Despite recommendations from the World Health Organization and European Medicines Watchdog to continue using the inoculation, Denmark's vaccination campaign will go ahead without the AstraZeneca vaccine, Health Authority Director Søren Brostrøm said at a news conference. Denmark was the first country in Europe to suspend the use of AstraZeneca's jab in the vaccination rollout after reports of rare but serious cases of blood clots among those who had received the vaccine. More than a dozen countries followed suit, but all but a few have since resumed the use of the vaccine after the European Medicines Agency emphasized the benefits of the vaccine and deemed it as safe and effective. Well, good. It's on you. And that's the thing. And I mentioned this out to Checkmate State over on Twitter earlier. Kurt, the Libertarian. I mentioned this to him because he asked if there was anything more than anecdotal evidence as to the safety of the vaccine. which there really isn't. I mean, if you're coming out and you're talking about 6 blood clots in 1,100 people on a vaccine site that day, that's anecdotal. That is not enough for Johnson & Johnson to come out and say, you know what, we're just going to stop this. And I know that social media is trying to fudge the numbers and saying that it's 6 vaccinations total. That is untrue. It was just 6 on that particular vaccination site, and there were 8 on a separate one that were reported, which means that there are probably a whole bunch of others that were going unreported. So don't try to fudge the numbers, and even if you don't try to fudge the numbers, it's still anecdotal, by the way. I just want you to want to point that out. It's still anecdotal. So, with that in mind, if you want to go and get the vaccine, that's on you. Your body, your choice. As long as you don't impose it back on me, because I would rather sit back and say, you know what? Let me just wait just a little bit. Because I want to see what happens with these long-term things. And you know what? If I was running out to go get the vaccine, I may be at risk for some of the blood clots. Or some of the other things that are derailing the Johnson & Johnson. Because I don't think it was just a few blood clots that were derailing it. There's something else going on with it. The same with AstraZeneca. It's just a few blood clots, but they're very severe. For the anecdotal evidence, for 6 or 8 people here and there, I wouldn't shut down an entire program off of this. So there is something else going on here that they're not telling you about. And I'll just sit back and wait. I'm 36. I'm healthy. I don't have a lot of breathing problems. I've quit smoking. I'm losing weight. If it's all the same to you, I'll just wait for a little while, if we could. But if you want to go out and get it, that's your choice. I might get it down the road. I probably won't, just because I don't care for doing a lot of medicine stuff. I barely take aspirin, for God's sake. But I might. If there's a few years of data that go along with it. But we'll see. So, that's what we're seeing off of that. Let's see what's happening in the live chat for the day. So let's get this up here so you guys can see what you're doing. Open that up for you guys. So, starting on Monday. Monday was busy. Monday and Tuesday were super busy, by the way, which I love to see from you guys. Wednesday and Thursday were a little bit slower, but still love to see it. On Monday, we had Ron Helton. We had Quest Fanning. We had Chilaga 1984 leading up the charge. We had Matthew, but his name was followed by L's on either side, came in here. He wasn't real happy with me either. I don't remember what it was that he was pissed off about, but he didn't care for me very much, I can tell you that. Nephilim Ninja of Nibiru was in here. Silentcaster Mad Cow Mark came over and checked us out from the opposite side of the world. Spartan 0000 Superior 1 was here. I had somebody in here named Carbonated Water, which was kind of cool. I like that. And Harvey McLeod finished out the day. On Tuesday, we had Quest Fanning, Chilaga 1984. We had Renamietti was here. Silentcaster came and hung out with us. We had Ron Helton, Mad Cow Mark. We had Kyra KCK 127. We had Exaleader and Lidokins representing the robot community and asking us, of course, if we want to become famous. Go to bigfollows.com with a weird Russian webpage that goes along with it. Wednesday we had a little bit of a slow day, but that's okay. We still have people coming in and chatting, so thank you to Harvey McLeod. Chilaga 1984, Quest Fanning. Nephilim Ninja of Nibiru, Spartan. YGG 00, SEDEMAN 0. And ZDOO 49, YEKNOM 56. Also asking us if we want to become famous. Do we want to become famous, guys? BigFollows.com. We could buy primes, subs, and follows on BigFollows.com. We could do that, you guys. On Thursday, we had a few people who were not happy with my discussion of both Ashley Babbitt and Derek Chauvin's trial. who seem to think that this is all guilty until proven innocent because we saw the video. Oh my God, the video. But on Thursday, because we still get the recognition of the people who come in and are detractors, because everyone's welcome here. I don't know if you guys realize that about me, but everyone's welcome here. We can have the discussion. But I'm not going to kick you out for having the discussion. If you're trolling, I'll kick your ass out. Or one of my wonderful moderators will do so. Which, by the way, there's going to be a pinned message in Discord on that too, by the way. So all of my moderators, I think, are in my Discord, so go and check my Discord after the show. I'll put that in there as soon as I'm off air here. But on Thursday, we had Actions Speak Louder Than Words over on the Periscope side. We had Harvey McLeod, Jaxie Pop, Mad Cow Mark. We had Quest Fanning, Nightmare 103 towards the end. Chulaga 1984 and Gary Linder came and joined us out. Rounded out the day on Thursday. All right, let's see what you guys are saying today. Ron's in here with the mosquitoes. Quest Fanning is in here. Good morning. Silent Caster says, Indianapolis. I imagine that'll be the first thing talked about today. It was the second, because we had to talk about San Antonio. We started with the one where no one was killed. Silent Caster says, I can forego my spot for someone who wants it. If that's the case, I'm fine with that. I'll donate either way and support by being a smartass in chat. Well, I do kind of want you hanging around a little bit too, no matter whether you're on screen or off screen, because we need to make sure this is moderated. We can't just do the free-for-all like we do on the normal streams, where you guys sit back and argue back and forth with the news of the day. Because we're going for charity, I do need you guys to be on alert and making sure that the trolls are gone, the people who are trying to detract, or the people that are trying to get us shut down off YouTube and Twitch. Because those people are going to be in the chat. So be on alert, and that's what we're going to talk about in the Discord too. All right, Chilaga 1984 is here with his What's Ups. Nephilim of Nibiru is in here saying good morning. Silent Caster says, you mean printing money has consequences? No. Rising consumer goods is not a consequence. I was pretty darn close. Yeah, you were. It was the second thing, not the first thing. Neff says, not more Asian hate. Maybe I'm jumping the gun. And then he says, no one injured. Haha, loser. Come on. Chilaga says, don't knock the tinfoil. Nephilim says, the tinfoil provides protection from 5G and EMP. Silent Caster said, this is why we need to stop posting on Twitter entirely. We perpetuate the court of social media on every post, even if it's critical of said idea. Quest Fanning says, distracted by bystanders. Did I wrenched up Quest Fanning or not? I want to check that quick. Otherwise, we're going to fix that. Because no, he is wrenched. Okay. Is there anybody else in here that I need to have wrenched? No, I think actually everybody in here is wrenched at this point. But I'm going to do some updates too and make sure that certain other people are wrenched on other platforms as well. Because the Twitch and the D-Live are the ones I'm nervous about, not necessarily the YouTube. Quest Fanning says, distracted by bystanders, McConnell smuggles coke, who I am going to wrench up over on D-Live. Let me see if you're far enough back where I can do that. Yeah, let's do that quick. McConnell, you're a moderator over on D-Live now. McConnell Smuggles Coke says, not a fan of the ear headphones. It hides earlobes. Yeah, I've actually got to get earbuds back in because they're wireless. But I don't think the battery in these is going to last for 24 hours. I was just thinking about that the other day. I should have thought about this earlier, but I was just thinking about that the other day. The wireless headphones are cool, but they're not going to last the whole day. I can tell you that. Nephilim says, yeah, I get it. Lobes on nothing. And then he says, if he had took the stand, he would have told us he was just taking... Neph? He was just taking a knee in solidarity. Whew. That was a little bit spicy. Silent Caster says, I bet if the shoe was on the other foot, that random Twitch commenter would have wanted a fair trial. Yeah, most likely. And that's one of the things that we see, is that they want fair trials for people that are on their side of the ideological aisle, but they want to crucify, in a sham trial, anybody who's on the other side of the aisle, or anybody who's a white male, even no matter what the side of the aisle is. The mattress girl and her attacker, who was proved didn't really attack her. Yeah, they wanted him to be crucified over that. Nephilim brings up a good point. He says, technically he was shooting at intruders, state-run intruders. Yeah, that's true. You should be able to defend yourself against the state as well. Quest says, Justice Thomas is right. Either social media companies act neutrality or are not responsible for the bad things that users do, or they get to editorialize, silence, etc., and are responsible for things like the user, organized crimes. And he says, in the name of Steve Solaris, don't talk about the fake account army. Don't say his name. Don't say Brit's alt accounts' names. Then Twitter might find them, because we're streaming to Periscope right now. Fucking Periscope. Silent Caster says, delete Twitter. I promise you'll be happier. Yeah, if it wasn't a marketing tool for me, I actually probably would have got rid of it, because it is fucking outrageous. But I do have a presence on there. I can market my programming on that, and we've used that to market the charity stream too. So it is a really good marketing tool, unfortunately. I have stepped back from a lot of my Twittering, though. I don't get into the big arguments and really give a fuck what anybody else has to say, because I'm too busy building my own thing right now, which has affected my follower count. It has gone down because I haven't been as active, so the algorithms aren't favoring me anymore, but I don't have the energy to keep doing Twitter. Chilaga says, my buddy predicted California red by 2028, 2032 at the latest. Well, yeah, because everyone will go to Texas. Nephilim says, a bunch of red pill teens will be voting by then. Chilaga, could be. Imagine voting. Quest says, I think the LP is actually bigger than the Republican Party, more a function of the shrinking our presence than any LP merit. Quest says, on Twitter, I have a tweet and the poster related to tomorrow's suicide prevention fundraiser stream as my fleets. I usually don't fleet enough random folks in my DMs, but trying to get the word out. I have never fleeted. I don't even know how to fleet. And I've seen like 2 fleets because I so rarely use Twitter mobile. They don't do it on Twitter desktop. You can't see fleets from Twitter desktop. So I've so rarely used this system, I have no idea how it goes. Quest says, Maya Wiley Coyote. Maybe I'll take another look at Yang. Silent Caster is outraged that Yang moved to Georgia when the election was happening, but then conveniently moved away from Georgia right after. Yeah, isn't that weird? Quest is, Ed is excited. I am excited. I'm excited to get this whole thing behind me. I'm excited for the fact of what's happening with all this and the fact that we're going to be able to support people, but I am excited for this whole thing to be over. Because I have put a lot of work into this stream. And I just want to take a rest. Let's see. Chilaga says, I know someone in the hospital with blood clots. It wasn't J&J. S in the chat. Ron Helton says, I don't have anything to say. I'm too black-pilled at this point. I wonder why it's so hard to connect the Trovo chat. Is that the restream function or Trovo or both? It is the restream function. They're trying to get it resolved, but they thus far have had no functionality with it yet, which is weird because Trovo actually runs on the same basic coding as Twitch does. I've looked at the coding. And the same basic coding and structure as it's the same as on Twitch. It's actually the same as on DLive too. All 3 of those sites use the same basic coding family, so it should be easy to do that, but for whatever reason, they can't figure out how to get it to work on the Trovo side. Chilaga1984 says, I've got a boots on the ground report. It could be nothing, which I've got to move my phone here because otherwise we're sitting across the message. I saw 2 military convoys yesterday in Iowa, 2 to 3 hours south of Minneapolis. Kind of interesting. National Guard. They had the battering ram trucks and all the Humvees. Oh, they might just be moving stuff too. I know they did a lot of that in Wisconsin between 2017 and 2019. It was like once a week I was running across a convoy running up and down 90 going to work. Ron says, yeah, my headphones only last about 8 to 10 hours. Thinking getting a second pair. The earbuds are uncomfortable. And that is going to be it for the day here. So, thank you guys for coming and hanging out. Let's get the scene changed up. Let's get some music playing and let's get the fuck out of here. I'm going back to bed, you guys. Because I have to be up at like 10 o'clock to take a shower and be ready to go for 24 hours. Oh, man. Here it comes. It's coming, you guys. I restarted my computer last night, so I don't have my music queued up either. So let's fix that. And we'll go. So, thank you guys. Thank you everybody who came by and hung out for the day. Enjoyed the news and enjoyed getting some chat in the live chat. Thanks everybody who came and hung out throughout the week as well. You guys are always very, very much appreciated. And it makes the show worth doing. I know I don't read the live chat during the show most of the time, unless there's like some major technical flaw. I do have it up all the time, but I don't always read it. But you guys really do make the morning read after the show awesome. So thanks for that. And once again, thanks for hanging out in advance tomorrow. Most everybody who watched today is a moderator of some sort, so make sure you guys are up on the ball and making sure that we make this all go off without a hitch. I don't want to moderate, but this is for charity, so definitely this is going to be something different. And we've got to make sure that this all goes good. So definitely looking forward to all that as well. You guys rock. We will see you back here tomorrow at whatever time, because we're going for 24 hours. So we'll see you guys back here tomorrow on this channel for the great charity live stream. I am definitely looking forward to that and hope to see you guys there. Otherwise, what am I saying otherwise? You guys are going to be here tomorrow because you guys fucking rock, and I know you guys rock. But in the odd event that you're not going to be able to, otherwise, we'll be back here on Monday morning, bright and early for more Contemporary. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.